Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us at the Detroit branch NAACP. I am Camelia Landrum. I serve as the Executive Director. It is my pleasure to welcome you to our house. Now I'll return the podium over to our President, Reverend Dr. Wendell Anthony, for the purpose of this press event.
Thank you, Ms. Landrum, and let me welcome all of you to the John Conyers Jr. Community Hall, named after the Dean, Congressman for 54 years, who served us well, who often stood here and discussed issues of importance to our community, like voting rights, like health care, like education, like women's rights, and all of those. So we remember Congressman Conyers, and that's why we named this room after him. And Governor, if it's all right with you, just for a moment, if we can pause to remember one of our city and states and the nation's greatest voices, the Prince of Preachers, yes, sir. Former NAACP president, the pastor and iconic, legendary, Reverend Dr. Charles Gilchrist Adams, who represents an era of preachers and prophets and articulators that will long be remembered and that we surely will never, ever forget. So can we just pause for a moment? Thank you. Governor and Mayor, Secretary, and everyone that's here, thank you for being here. I have a statement, and then we're going to introduce others, and then the governor will do what she does best. That's right, to do what she does best. That's to bring some law and some bills and some legislation to our benefit. The late Congressman John Lewis, and we remember the mantra that he left us. He said, "The vote is precious. It is almost sacred. It is the most powerful nonviolent tool we have in a democracy." Today, the people have been given some new tools. These tools will help every community to build on the foundation of a democracy which includes all people, regardless of race, gender, location, age, or station. It is important to note that every election has a consequential determination on the people's personal situation. Michigan has a governor who understands the necessity to provide access, information, and protection for those in the family of Michiganders who seek to exercise their voting franchise. The Michigan House of Representatives under Speaker Joe Tate and the Michigan Senate under the Majority Leader Winnie Brinks have been consistent in moving legislation forward from the floor of the House to the halls of the Senate to the desk of our governor. A special thanks to Representatives Penelope Sonoglu, Senator Jeremy Moss, and several others in the House and Senate for sponsoring such important and critical bills for the benefit of our community. We salute both House and Senate leaders who have stepped up to use their political position to make much better the social and civic condition of the people they serve. Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson has been a champion for voter mobilization and protection. There have been those who have tried to intimidate her, but they have never been successful in unmotivating her to do the work of the people. The NAACP has maintained for the past 114 years as one of its highest priorities the right to vote. Governor Gretchen Whitmer, who escaped a plot to kidnap, try, and ultimately sentence her has never wavered. Big Gretch has used her pen well. Michigan has moved towards the top of those states that have an exemplary rank as it relates to voter access, registration, and participation. I have never forgotten the words of the late Congresswoman Shirley Chisholm. When speaking to the people and communities around America, she said, "The one thing you got going is your vote." Today, we are reminded once again of the one thing that we all got going, and that is, of course, our vote. There can be no rhyme or reason for any excuse in the state of Michigan for us to sit out any election. The barriers are being knocked down, and the doors are being made to stand wide open, thanks to a Michigan led by folks who use their power for the people and who do not use the power against the people. When we thrive together, we all can win. From here in Southeast Michigan to the Upper Peninsula, the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. ring true. If democracy is to have breadth of meaning, it is necessary to adjust the inequity. It is not only moral, but it is also intelligent. We are wasting and degrading human life by clinging to archaic thinking. Thank you, Madam Governor, and to our state legislature for moving us away from the archaic thinking of the past. Now it is time for the people to take their souls to the polls and vote like their lives depend upon it, because quite frankly, they do. It's my pleasure now to introduce the leader of our city, City of Detroit, which has a great deal of responsibility in the voting process and who's always been a part of that which opens up our community to receive and to accomplish that which Detroiters have never, ever forgotten. Welcome to the Big D, led by the Honorable Mayor Mike Duggan.
Well, thank you, Reverend, and I want to congratulate Governor Whitmer, Secretary of State Benson, and all of the legislative leaders who got this done. In one way, this is a very positive day for democracy, but in another way, it's sad that we even need to pass these bills. I grew up in a house where my father was a lifelong Republican, and we would debate furiously, but at the end of the day, you tried to get the most votes to win the election. Somewhere along the line, it has turned into try to keep people who don't agree with you from voting in the first place or keep their votes from being counted. And I see Clerk Kathy Garrett here, our city clerk, Janice Winfrey. And I got to tell you, in 2020, I was very proud of the election Janice Winfrey ran in Detroit. We increased, she did a great job. We increased the absentee voter locations. We put millions more into extra staff. I helped change the state law so you could count sooner. The clerk put out drop boxes with cameras on them, guaranteeing their security up until the day of the election. Not one whisper suggested there was a problem with the voting in Detroit. But election night, when one of the presidential candidates was losing, all of a sudden a crowd descended on the election workers just doing their job down at the convention center, pounding on the windows and the like, claiming with no evidence whatever there were irregularities in Detroit. 5 separate lawsuits in state and federal court, and all 5 found that Janice Winfrey and the Detroit clerk's office ran a good and clean election. And then the U.S. Court of Appeals hit Sidney Powell and those lawyers with $130,000 in sanctions for making lies in their lawsuits. And you figured that was done, right? Until 2 years ago, when the Secretary of State's opponent decided to file a similar lawsuit, except she didn't wait till we started counting the votes. She filed in October saying we're counting them wrong. We hadn't even started counting. It was ridiculous. Not only was that case dismissed, but the courts ordered that failed candidate to pay $58,000 in sanctions for false lawsuits. But what we've all realized is they have the ability to keep writing checks for these fines. It took more action than that. And what the legislators have done here is put together a package of bills to assure everybody in Michigan your vote is going to be counted fairly. They've got bills that protects the safety of the election workers who are just our neighbors doing their job counting the ballots at night. They make it easier for you to register. They make it easier for you to count the votes. And they do something really important. They've now created a bill that says you can't advertise with artificial intelligence without disclaiming it. Now, this is going to be the next frontier of false accusations when you can put a video of somebody saying things they never actually said. But the state of Michigan says, we're not going to discredit our elections that way. You're going to have to put on there in a disclaimer that you altered this. These are visionary bills that will assure everybody that when the votes are counted in November of 24, you don't have anything to worry about in the state of Michigan. We are very fortunate in this state. We have a Secretary of State who has been vigilant in fighting back against all of these lies and has shown real leadership in supporting this legislation. Please welcome Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Reverend Anthony, always for hosting extraordinary gatherings like this. And I also, obviously, Governor Whitmer, I'm grateful for your partnership, your leadership, for the lawmakers here today, Senator Moss, Rep. Cerniglu, and all that have gathered here today. We're here today to protect the people who protect democracy and sign legislation to that effect. But I also want to thank all of you who are here, because as I look out at the faces in this audience, I see the people who fought to ensure that we could be here signing bills like these, proposing protections for our democracy at a time when our democracy is under siege. When Governor Whitmer and I took office in 2019, I said this was going to be a new day for democracy. And indeed it has. We saw, in part because of the work all of you and folks here have done, we implemented absentee voting for the first time statewide, election day registration, automatic voter registration, and coming up in the February 27th election, we will see early voting for the first time. And here in Detroit, you'll have up to almost 2 weeks, 12 days, I believe, right, of early voting in the city for our February 27th presidential primary. Lots ahead of us. We are ready for 24, but we would not be ready without the work, the tireless work that City Clerk Janice Winfrey and County Clerk Kathy Garrett put in every day and have for years, making sure that elections work for everyone. So when I look at all of you, I see these two heroes here. Thank you. Thank you for always being there for your voters, for the citizens of Detroit, for the citizens of Wayne County. Thank you for always working with our team and with clerks for leading this county, Clerk Garrett, and all of the clerks who look up to you for guidance and inspiration, especially in moments like these where, let's face it, while we've seen back-to-back the highest turnout elections in our state's history, 5.5 million citizens voting in 2020, and our highest record-breaking midterm election ever in our state's history in 2022. That was great, right? New day for democracy indeed. But it hasn't been without our challenges, and the people who have borne the brunt of those challenges are the men and women who show up to make voting work every day. And they are led by these two clerks here who have been at the forefront of standing down those challenges and standing up for not just themselves, but for our democracy and for our state and for our country. So thank you both for your leadership and for your vision. And I'm proud here today that thanks to Representative Kara Hope and Senator Dana Paul-Henke, the governor will be signing legislation to protect you and all election workers in this state from the threats and harassment that have been an output of that misinformation that has wrongly flowed into our democracy for far too long. We are here to protect the people who protect democracy, and that's what we're celebrating today. So thank you, Governor. Thank you, legislators. Thank you, clerks. Thank you, all of you, for ensuring we can prepare for 24 by protecting those people, not just against those threats, but against the lies that underlie those threats. The legislation signed today to protect voters from misinformation supercharged by artificial intelligence, deep fakes, lies that we should expect to see on social media will help us. The laws signed today will help us protect voters against the impact of those malicious attempts to fool citizens about their rights, and will ensure we are prepared, whether it's our foreign adversaries or domestic anti-democracy adversaries. We will be able to protect every citizen in the state from those lies because of this legislation that's being signed today. So thank you, Representative Cernoglu and Noah Arbit, for leading that way. And I also want to thank one other thing that is really historic. We're celebrating a lot of historic things today. We haven't mentioned yet is a bill that Representative Betsy Kofia proposed that the governor will be signing that will give young Michiganders the opportunity to pre-register to vote at the age of 16 when they get their driver's license. This will ensure that when citizens come to our office and get their driver's license at the age of 16, they'll be entered into the system so that as soon as they're of age, they will be ready to go and ready to vote. And we will be contacting them. Trust me, we will be letting them know exactly how to exercise their options to vote in every election, be it voting early, voting absentee, or voting in person on election day. So this is truly a celebration of a new day for democracy here in our state. Clearly a great step into the 2024 election cycle where we will be prepared for all the bullies who are going to show up on our doorstep here in Michigan trying to influence our vote and hurt our citizens. We will be prepared to protect every voice and every vote and our entire democracy, thanks to the bills we're signing today, thanks to the leadership of Governor Whitmer and the lawmakers who've led this way, and thanks to all of you who have ensured that as we work together to pass these initiatives and pass these bills and get people out to vote, that the voice and the will of the people will always rule the day in our state. So I'm here now also to introduce Senator Moss. No, Representative Cernoglu, my great partner here, Chair Cernoglu, on who has been a champion. We've known each other for over a decade, working in the trenches to protect voters and protect voting rights. And I'm so proud that she's now the chair of the Elections Committee in the State House. And she truly has made her mark in just 1 year, leading that committee, passing and overseeing the passage of legislation that we're here today to celebrate. Thanks.
Good afternoon, Detroit. Today, as I approach graduation from my freshman year in the legislature, I stand alongside two amazing trailblazing women from Michigan. Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson and Governor Gretchen Whitmer are two of the fiercest advocates for protecting democracy, expanding voting access, and promoting good government that I have ever seen. 11 months ago, when I first took office and the role of House Elections Chair, the wish list from voting rights advocates and election workers was long. I immediately began working side by side with my partner and mentor in the state Senate, Senator Jeremy Moss, to ensure that Michigan continues to lead the nation in election access. And I couldn't have done it without my extremely competent and brilliant staff members, Alex Burkle, who's here today, Shannon Higgins, and Cynthia Paul, as well as all of my amazing colleagues in the State House under the leadership of Speaker Tate, who have made elections and democracy a top priority. Together, this team has accomplished so much in just 11 short months. We engaged voting rights advocates and clerks statewide to implement Proposal 2's requirements for 9 days of early voting, ballot drop boxes across the state, and a permanent absentee voter list ahead of schedule and in the most practical way possible. Since then, we have removed the disenfranchising prohibition on paid rides to the polls. We have removed the frivolous requirements for challenging same-day registrations so that students and other first-time voters will never again have to wait for hours on end to cast their ballots. And today, we are ensuring that voters are protected from AI-generated deepfakes and misinformation, threatening the very core of our democracy and the integrity of our elections. Today, we are protecting election workers from threats, harassment, and intimidation. Today, we are ensuring that all citizens who interact with our Department of State and other governmental offices are securely and automatically registered to vote. Today, we are empowering a new generation of leaders to pre-register to vote beginning at the age 16. And today, Michigan will lead the nation in voting access, secure elections, and protections for voters, election workers, and democracy. And we are just getting started. I cannot wait to see what comes next. And now, I would like to introduce you to my amazing colleague and partner in the Senate, Senator Jeremy Moss.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Reverend Anthony, for opening up this room to us. There's history on these walls here, as I've been looking during the program. And what we're doing here today, all of this history has led up to. I feel that history back home in my district, where I represent neighborhoods in Northwest Detroit and Southfield, my hometown, and Pontiac. And I'm trying to harness that history into good forward action as chair of the Senate Elections Committee and President Pro Tem of the Michigan State Senate. We've all endured a lot over the last several years, especially in 2020. No state in the country was more scrutinized during the 2020 presidential election than Michigan. And we stood up to that scrutiny. Michiganders proved to be resilient and turned out in record numbers. And our election process proved to be secure and correctly tallied the will of voters. Now heading into 2024, we are charged to build on the successes in our voting administration, both by making it easier for voters to participate in the election and harder for conspiracy theorists to attempt to damage the certified result. With these bills that are about to be signed, we are approaching the next presidential election with even stronger confidence in our system at every step in the voting process, from registering to vote, by expanding our automatic and online process, which will make Michigan a leader in connecting new voters to the ballot, to restoring truth on the campaign trail by tackling these new forms of AI tactics that are intentionally designed to deceive voters, from protecting our election day workers from intimidation and harassment, to strengthening our certification process so unlawful actors and their contrived chaos can no longer attempt to overturn our election. I'm especially proud to have drafted and sponsored that legislation. That's Senate Bill 529. You can draw a direct line from the lies that were pushed at the TCF Center, now Huntington Place, on election night 2020, and draw that line directly to the U.S. Capitol on January 6, 2021. Those lies targeted Detroit and tried to throw out the votes primarily from black citizens. But here today in Detroit, we're drawing a new line, a direct line from this bill signing to a clear process free from illegal obstruction to certify the 2024 election. No more crazed and debunked legal theories about how electors can convene and how our electoral college votes are sent to Congress. No more fake slates. As chair of this committee, I'm committed to continuing this work into 2024 to reduce barriers to voting and increase access to the ballot box. I want to thank our dedicated Senate staff who are helping to realize these goals, especially Jennifer Schuster, our Senate Election Policy Director, and Jenny Geese, my Legislative Director. And I'm so grateful for my partnership with Secretary of State Jocelyn Benson, our House Elections Chair Penelope Cernaglo, our dedicated county and municipal clerks, and all of the devoted voting right advocates gathered here today. Under Governor Whitmer's leadership, we are prepared to face the scrutiny of 2024 and will ensure that every qualified voter who wants to participate in our election can freely exercise their right to do so. I want to introduce one of the many heads of our groups here that have pushed this legislation forward to give some remarks. Rebecca Islam, who is Executive Director of APIA Votes.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Let me just get this adjusted. All right. My name is Rebecca Islam, Executive Director with API Vote Michigan. And API Vote Michigan is a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization that's really dedicated to justice and equity for the Asian American community and the BIPOC community. And through grassroots mobilization, civic engagement, leadership development, and youth involvement, we strive to have a positive impact. And just like the previous speakers have mentioned, we are particularly thrilled about the new initiative that allows youth pre-registrations at age 16 and 17. Oftentimes, our engagement with our high school students and as soon as they graduate and before they are eligible to register to vote. But this new system allows and ensures that they're in the system and ready to have their voices heard when they're 18. And also, we are excited about the extended voting dates that address accessibility concerns in our community. The additional 9 days, it will provide flexibility, making it easier for everyone to participate in our democracy. And we look forward to spreading awareness about these enhancements and ensuring that voting becomes more accessible for all of us. And now it is my honor to introduce the person behind all of this, that makes it all possible, that makes it possible for all of us to participate in our democracy. And for me, I don't know, I was too young to remember who the governors were before, Governor Whitmer, or remember what they did, right? Okay, maybe I do remember a thing or two, but let's not talk about that. Okay, let's not talk. I didn't say any names. I'm just saying. Okay, again, I was too young to remember anything, right? Let's just say that. But I'm extremely grateful that I get to experience, our state government under the leadership of Governor Whitmer. So it is my honor to introduce Governor Whitmer.
All right, thank you. Well, I'm so pleased to be here and so grateful for all of you, and especially Rebecca, who gave us a little levity, right? Today we're coming together to protect voting rights and to strengthen democracy, and I want to really thank the NAACP for hosting us today. It is an honor to be here, and I appreciate the work that this organization does, and as a lifelong member, I'm really proud to be here today. So I'm about to sign a package of bills that will ensure that Michiganders in every community can make their voices heard and have their votes counted. In Michigan, we are proving through our actions that we stand for fundamental American values of freedom and democracy. The bills that I'm signing today do a whole lot of things, but I'm going to highlight just a few of the top ones. Ban deep fakes and AI in campaign advertisements. Allow 16 and 17-year-olds to pre-register to vote so that they can exercise their constitutional right when they turn 18. And criminalize violence or intimidation towards poll workers who are stepping up simply to serve their fellow citizens. Every bill that I'm signing today is important, but I want to highlight a few that ensure that no one in Michigan can be held back from the ballot box, no matter who they are or what they look like or where they live in this state. Because let's be honest, we know exactly who the people making it harder to vote are targeting. Communities of color, the elderly, the disabled, and young people. It's the people on the margins, the people most impacted by public policy, people whose voices are essential in shaping our democracy. And that's why I'm proud that we are also celebrating bills today that repeal the ban on providing transportation to the polls and adding 9 days of early voting. The penalty for helping someone get a ride to the polls, unless they physically could not walk, used to be $500 and up to 90 days in jail. We're the only state in the nation that had that kind of a law, and we know who's being targeted. Every election, churches and Black communities organize drives to take souls to the polls so that parishioners can vote. That's right. In 2018, when Uber and Lyft offered people discounted rides to the polls, in Michigan, they could not legally take part in that. If you wanted to get an Uber for your friend to get to the polls, Michigan said you were breaking the law just by doing that. So this law targeted elderly voters, communities of color, and voters without their own vehicle. It was just and anti-democratic. And so I'm proud that with this action today, we are repealing that one especially. The second law that I want to highlight expands early voting to 9 days before the election. Last November, Michigan voters overwhelmingly voted to pass Proposal 2, which expanded voting rights in Michigan, including early voting. Over the last few elections, Michiganders have spoken with a clear voice in favor of more democracy, more ability to participate, not less. In 2018, Michiganders voted to establish an independent redistricting commission, giving us fair maps for the first time in decades. And last year's Proposal 2 expanded voting rights, allowing Michiganders to vote by mail, to require prepaid stamps and tracking systems for their ballots, and to ensure that service members serving overseas could vote easily too. But it's worth pointing out why adding more early voting days is important, especially to middle-class Michiganders who work hard just to make ends meet. It's not always easy to take off time to go vote. You might lose valuable hours on the clock. You might not be able to find childcare. You might have to go out of your way just to find a polling place. Any of these factors can be a hindrance, especially for people who work 2 jobs, have young children, or deal with a lengthy commute. Expanding early voting ensures that more working-class Michiganders can vote at a time that is convenient for them. No one should have to choose between providing for themselves and their family or exercising their constitutional right to vote. In fact, that's exactly who needs to make their voices heard more often. People who are living the challenges that we as a country and as a state need to tackle. So what a difference a new majority makes, am I right? That's right. I remember the NAACP Freedom Fund dinner right here in Detroit in 2021. In the months after the 2020 election, after the violence of January 6th, after people threatened poll workers right here in Michigan, the previous legislature sent me 39 bills making it harder to vote. These bills would have made Michigan the most anti-democratic state in the nation. They would have purged voter rolls, allowed voter intimidation, and destroyed confidence in our elections. It was a direct attack on voting rights, systematically designed to disenfranchise Black voters, older voters, and college kids. It was built on lies, big and small. And it was, in the words of Raphael Warnock, Jim Crow in new clothes. I'm looking at all of these educational materials on the wall. Michiganders saw through it. They stood up for their rights, and they overwhelmingly passed Proposal 2 in the wake of it. They elected a new majority, and I'm grateful that my partner, the Speaker of the House, Joe Tate, is here, and Winnie Brinks from Grand Rapids. So instead of vetoing 39 bad anti-voting bills, today I'm proud to be here with the NAACP to sign 23 pro-democracy bills. Let's get it done.
She's your error, sir. Go ahead. Nobody can see her. You just negotiating. Come step up to the podium at least. Step up right here, Mayor.
I don't want to stand in front of him.
Oh, yeah. Mayor's taller than you.
Oh, good.
Sign them, Governor. Sign them.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Come on.
That is awesome. Can you see?
It's happening. It's happening. It's definitely happening.
You good?
Can you see it?
No, you're good. You're good.
All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Appreciate it. Yeah. Paperwork here. Well, it doesn't count if I don't do it right. I want to stay. Great.
I know, yeah.